Today, we're testing 13 recent and demanding titles with the AMD 7900 XT. How many years would this GPU be good for in 1440p? Does it pair well with the Ryzen 7 from 2022, or do you need an X3D CPU? Throughout this video, we'll see how the 7900 XT performs across a range of in-game settings, and give you an idea of performance in games that initial reviews might have missed. First, let's take a look at the specs. I have a PowerColor RX 7900 XT, a Ryzen 7 5700X, 32GB of DDR4 clocked at 3200 MHz, and a 2TB Western Digital SN850X. I'm using default settings with AMD Adrenalin, although I generally have anti-lag turned on for reduced input lag. On a side note, my 9800 X3D is here, so expect videos on that soon. And now, let's jump into the first game. Space Marine 2 is my introduction to the Warhammer universe, and it looks great at ultra settings. In our 1440p tests at native resolution, we hit an average of 58.6 FPS, with 43.1 on the 1% lows and a max of 74.3. Switching to FSR quality bumped the average up to 69.4, and when I combined FSR quality with FrameGen, we got all the way up to 109.3. Pretty good results, although I did notice some YouTube videos were able to get better performance with an X3D chip. Next, we have God of War Ragnarok. This game is amazing in terms of gameplay and performance. I only tested at one graphics preset because it just performs so well. Ultra settings at native resolution delivered a silky smooth 141 FPS average, with 107.3 on the 1% lows and 206.1 for the max. I love how the cutscenes flow into the gameplay so smoothly, and I think I heard before that there aren't any loading screens in this game, or at least there aren't many. Moving on to Black Ops 6. I played this one a ton, although lately it's seen a player drop, which doesn't really surprise me. At 1440p with basic settings, we hit 164 FPS average and 111 on the 1% lows. With the Ultra preset, we dropped those numbers to 122 and 86, and the Extreme preset was a touch lower at 115 and 81, respectively. I'd lean towards the basic preset for competitive multiplayer, since every frame counts, and I generally do that in multiplayer games like this. For Plague Tale Requiem, I haven't played through the story yet, but from what I've seen on Hardware Unboxed and other benchmark videos, Ultra quality is very demanding. In our tests, Ultra settings delivered just 64.3 FPS on average, while the high preset pushed the average up to 105 with much better consistency. I would prefer playing the high preset on this game. It still looks amazing and runs pretty well on this hardware. The Dead Space remake initially gave me some stuttering headaches with 12 to 15% on the 1% lows, but after a quick system reboot, the stutter was gone. Running at Ultra, we saw 131.5 FPS average, 51.1 on the lows, and 190.7 max. High settings produce slightly better 1% lows at 87.6, but I'm a fan of the performance on Ultra here. The dark blacks in this game look beautiful on an OLED screen, but I'm not the biggest fan of jump scares, so I probably won't be dying to beat this game anytime soon. Delta Force is a bit of a challenge on my current Ryzen 5700X. At native 1440p with the Ultra preset, we recorded 66.1 FPS average, 35.9 1% lows, and 88.3 max. Switching to high settings nudged it up to 75.8 on average, and I've seen how large servers can drastically affect max FPS with my PC, compared to smaller servers with just 64 or 32 players. I can't wait to swap in my new 9800 X3D. I expect Delta Force to run a lot smoother then. F124 had me testing a lot of different presets. Running at native resolution with a low graphics preset, we hit 172 FPS average, 120 on the lows, and 221 max. Ultra quality with native res, we dropped down to 79 FPS average, and the FSR quality modes weren't too much better, within 22 FPS of each other. In my opinion, the high preset with 165 FPS average would be the perfect balance between performance and visuals. Every match in Helldivers 2 is so chaotic, which is kind of the reason that it's so much fun. Performance will vary from game to game, but I played these two short 15-minute missions back to back on the same planet, and on the Ultra preset, at native resolution, we got 71.2 FPS average with 49.9 1% lows. However, when I switched to the high preset, performance jumped to an average of 94.4 FPS, so personally I'd stick with the high preset for that extra bump in performance, but both settings still look very impressive. Immortals of Aveum really pushed my system to the limits. At native Ultra, the game struggled with an average of 42.7 FPS, but with FSR quality we got a boost to 56.5. Enabling frame gen had the biggest impact by pushing the average up to 106.6, but even an RTX 4090 can only hit about 80 FPS at native 1440p, so it's clear the developers intended us to play with upscaling and frame generation here. It's unfortunate, and I hope more titles perform better on the latest hardware in the future. In Marvel Rivals, running at the native resolution with the Ultra preset, we recorded 71.3 FPS average, 43.3 on the 1% lows, and 102.3 max. This title is more demanding than it appears, so if you're looking for a smoother multiplayer experience, turning on FSR while keeping Ultra quality might just be the trick. For Cyberpunk 2077, I started with the high preset that has FSR enabled by default. We hit 107.9 FPS average, 77.5 on the lows, and 135.9 max. Turning FSR off brought it down a bit to 99 average, but like many titles, I'm a fan of the native resolution look, so that's not too bad for me here. Now for Black Myth Wukong, a true test for any system with the cinematic preset. At native resolution, it ran at 52 FPS average, 63 max, and 41 minimum. Switching to FSR at 75% improved the numbers to 63 on average, and when I combined FSR with FrameGen, performance jumped up to 111 on average. Dialing up ray tracing with FSR and FrameGen dropped things dramatically to 38 though, with a minimum of just 5 FPS. But I'd recommend sticking with FSR at 75% or lower if you're set on using the cinematic preset. Horizon Zero Dawn from 2017 may be an older title, but it still delivers some great graphics and good performance along with it. Native settings delivered an average of 141 FPS, with lows of 59 and a max of 252. FSR quality nudged that slightly to 146 on average and 270 max, but the differences are minimal, so don't bother with upscaling in this game. So, what's the takeaway? The RX 7900 XT is really good for 1440p gaming, handling everything from the cinematic games to the fast-paced multiplayer ones. At 1440p, we can see the CPU become more of a bottleneck. It's especially notable in games like Black Ops 6, where my average FPS of 164 with the basic preset wasn't much better than the 161 I got when I tested at 4K. For some games, I could see others online with a better frame rate when using the X3D chips like 9800 X3D or 7800 X3D, so I'm looking forward to see the differences with my new build. For those still on AM4, consider upgrading to a Ryzen 7 5700 X3D or 5800 X3D. This will be the best bang for your buck, but if you're starting with a whole new system, you're better off building on the latest platform, AM5. With an X3D CPU or not, this GPU would definitely last you for years to come, and at $1,000 Canadian for the cheapest model I can find, you'd hope it would last you years to come. I also plan on taking a look at some of my friends' PCs for troubleshooting and build advice. I've built maybe 15 computers over the years, and I like keeping up with the prices and performance of computer hardware. Thanks for watching though. Subscribe if you appreciate the content, and if you like this video, you'll probably like one of my previous ones where I tested the 7900 XT in VR and 4K.